Hi, this is Matt Regier with my EDL 856 case study, A New Role for Parents. So who's involved in this case? First, there's me, the principal. There's also the president of the parents group that has reorganized themselves into some committees and chosen a different role for themselves, and they're looking for more involvement. There are also other members of this parents group and the committees beyond the president, and then there's also the teachers and other administrators in the district that are peripherally involved. So what's happening in this school? The newly modified parents group has presented the principal, me, with a list of requests, essentially, almost demands. There's a week-long series of back-to-school meetings that they have proposed. There are parents committees that have been formed regarding discipline and teacher performance, curriculum, and school evaluation. And they plan to do some school observations, they plan to gather data, and then to present policy statements on things that they would like to see changed. The idea here is that the parents want more involvement in their students' education and that they want to be seen as equal partners with the school in their child's educational process. There are definitely some legal and ethical issues involved in this case. One of them is contractual obligations and confidentiality for teachers. The teachers are signed to a contract that has a certain number of working days, a certain number of working hours each day. So a week-long series of back-to-school meetings would almost certainly fire up the local education association. It would also have some confidentiality issues with teacher observation and evaluation. So having parent groups come in to do the observation and evaluation, I certainly think that would be seen as a negative for most teachers. Regardless of whether it's well-intentioned, that would add some additional pressure onto them and would leave some question as to who is truly their evaluator and observer. There's also the ethical question of how much parental involvement is appropriate for both parents and the school and students. Will increased involvement favor some students or parents over others? Is this a case where the squeaky wheel gets greased? Certain parents are able to bend the system maybe to favor their student or to have more say than other parents that maybe can't get off during the day from work to come in to observe or help in the school. There's also the question of what opportunities exist that are truly equitable for all families that wish to be involved. Again, are all parents able to be on these committees? Are all parents invited to these meetings? Are all parents able to help and communicate with the school as they wish? So there are certainly some legal, but also I think more ethical issues involved with this. What is the best way for parents to be involved in their school and in their child's education? So for me, my role here is to allow parents to feel involved in their child's education while maintaining the legal and ethical boundaries for such involvement. I need to apparently increase the amount of involvement that these parents feel with their child's education, but I also need to maintain for the teachers, the students, and truly the parents, the legal and ethical boundaries that surround that involvement. So putting the facts together here, I've consistently consulted the parent organization during event planning, the back-to-school meetings, parent-teacher conferences. There's been multiple events held each year that have involved this parents group that was formerly the PTA. But parents have expressed some dissatisfaction with their role and or with their representation within the school. They want to be more involved with their child's education, with curriculum, with evaluation, and with the school program itself. Parents want to be involved in decision making. They want to be involved in policy, but they lack some understanding of what is legal and what is ethical for parent involvement. They are almost certainly well-intentioned and probably thinking about what's best for their children, but as in many cases, the parents seem to be a bit maybe short-sighted or lack some understanding about what is truly allowable within a school building. And the parents have organized themselves into committees regarding several of these areas. Again, as I mentioned, supervision evaluation, there's a curriculum committee, so that they're already organized and certainly motivated to help. So who will this impact? There's potential damage for teacher morale and contractual obligations that certainly would be impacted. A week of back-to-school meetings where teachers would be expected to stick around till 6 to 8 every night. I don't see that going over very well. As principal, my role and standing are certainly at risk here. A negative outcome from this case study would almost certainly lead to a lack of trust and a lack of faith in my position as administrator, but also the school as a whole. And then there's a variety of parent groups that could be impacted based on their involvement and group standing. Certainly there's the parent group that exists and that has come to me, but there are also parent groups that are not involved probably with that committee or with that group. Groups of parents that maybe haven't attended the meetings or aren't able to attend those meetings. So how will those parents be impacted? How will our parents who maybe English is not their first language, how will they be impacted with their students? So their involvement, their group standing, and their standing within the community certainly has an impact on how this will play out for each parent and each family, but also for each student. Again, if this is a case where the squeaky wheel gets greased every time and these parents get essentially whatever they want, that could be seen as a negative. There's certainly a positive, however, also, and a positive impact that could come from increased parent involvement in their child's education. So stakeholders here, there's me, the principal. There are parents, teachers and staff, and students. In a secondary role, there are other stakeholders within the community, but these seem to be the ones that are most directly involved in this case study. So some consultation. I need to construct a response to the parent organization that meets their concerns while maintaining a legal and ethical approach. I should definitely consult my superintendent as this response is constructed, both for input but also communication advice. What's the best way to go about communicating this with the parents, with the wide variety of stakeholders that exist in our community. And then I should also consult these parents and probably some other stakeholders in the community. I could provide guidance on appropriate involvement, and they could provide some input about what they want to see as their role in the school building. Again, they're obviously motivated and they want to be involved with their child's education, which is a good thing. My job then is to coordinate that effort so that it doesn't overstep legal and ethical bounds, and so it is productive for both students and parents. So before I make a decision, I need to learn just a little bit more. First, I need to know what aspects of the school the parents would like to see changed. It mentioned in the case study that really all that was mentioned was more involvement. So I think there probably needs to be some sort of a sit down with parents or this committee group to talk about what aspects of the school would they like to see changed, or where do they see themselves plugging in for more involvement. I also need to consider what two-way communication channels exist for parental involvement currently, and then which ones might be viable options to add for our school. It doesn't mention whether this is an elementary, middle, or high school. There's probably some impact on this decision based on what age group you're talking about. But two-way communication between parents and the students is vital for this to work and for parents to be involved. So that's something that I need to learn and consider. And then also, what resources does this parent group have that they might be willing to share? It mentioned that one of the members was a lawyer. Are there some business owners in this group? Are there farmers in this group? What sort of clientele is this? And what sort of resources do they have that they might be willing to share? This may be an issue of parents that feel like they have a lot to offer the school and we're just not utilizing it. So I think I need to reach out and find out what resources they have that we might be able to utilize. So what should I do? I came up with 4 options here. The first was just to move forward without any change. Disregard the parent proposal, offer only the roles for parental involvement that have been filled in the past, dismiss the committees entirely, and don't allow parents any further or additional involvement. This is essentially the don't do anything approach. The second option would be to completely cooperate with the new parent group and committees to communicate the additional expectations with teachers and set up the week-long series of back-to-school meetings, and then to work with the parent group to allow them to come into the school, to observe teachers, to gather data, and then to submit their policy proposals. The third option was to work with staff and stakeholders to improve community involvement. This would involve meeting with the parents group to kind of redirect them into cooperative efforts. Redirect is a succinct word there, but it's not complete for the idea. This really would be an idea gathering, a brainstorming session, and then my purpose and my job for the meeting would be to find ways to use those desires, those skills, those resources to form a cooperative effort with the school that works for both groups, that works for the parents, the students, and the staff. I'd prioritize two-way communication in this approach and would move beyond event-based involvement. This would be helpful for a variety of the stakeholders, those that maybe can't make it to every school event that happens maybe during a night shift or something like that. Moving beyond that event-based involvement is important. but also just for building community, to make the school to parent and parent to school communication something that doesn't just happen on the second Wednesday of a month or the third Monday, to make it something that's more of a constant stream of communication that allows parents to feel like they're actually involved in their child's education. And then I'd utilize parent and community resources in the curriculum, and this would be a cooperative effort with teachers to form some projects or assignments that allow students to go home and utilize their parents as resources. And this isn't just a homework assignment. It might be a history assignment where they're asked to interview a grandparent or an older neighbor or someone that they know in the community that might have been alive during the Korean War or the Vietnam War. Maybe it's someone that remembers something historical. It might be utilizing a fertilizer plant or some farmers or someone else that would have some science knowledge in the community. There'd be a variety of ways to integrate community resources into curriculum beyond just sending homework home and asking parents to do it with their children. So this would take some work and some effort, but utilizing those parent and community resources, they are motivated. They've formed committees. So working with the staff and the stakeholders to improve that community involvement and really make it feel like a two-way street of communication. And then fourth, I could increase stakeholder involvement through additional events. So adding monthly or bi-monthly parent events at the school. I know our elementary school will sometimes do a bingo night and a scavenger hunt night and things like that. So adding some more events so that parents are in the school buildings more often. This would probably involve forming a planning committee, including parents and staff and some other stakeholders. So a quick evaluation of each option. Option number one was no action, just move forward without any change. The pros here are that the system is already in place and many parents will accept the status quo. Not all of them, but many of them will. And there's no legal or ethical issues with that system. It has worked relatively well in the past, well enough that I was totally unaware that this parent group was going to come to me with all of these proposals. The cons of this proposal, obviously, are that the parents group won't probably be satisfied, and the underlying issues and desires for increased involvement remain unaddressed. So there's potential here for larger issues down the road, along with a significant loss of community trust in both the school and its administration. Option two would be to cooperate with the new parent group and the committee structure that they've proposed. The pros here are that the parents group will probably be pleased, and there would certainly be increased parent and community involvement, which again is almost always a good thing. The cons are that it increases demands on teachers fairly significantly with a week's worth of back to school night. There's also the confidentiality and ethical issues with parents observing teachers, making curriculum decisions, making evaluation recommendations. That would quickly lead to some very challenging conversations, but also some very challenging situations for students who maybe have a parent that's observing and making negative comments about a teacher that's still teaching that student in class. And then there's a lack of appropriate limits that will likely lead to further issues in the future. Those limits are there for a reason, and there's a reason that teachers have some confidentiality with evaluation, and so that disregard of the limits will lead to further issues in the future. Option three, the pros here are that it offers opportunities for increased parental involvement and participation. Again, almost always a good thing. It promotes communication, two-way communication between parents and teachers, and it allows practically all of our parents and children to benefit at least in some way. With two-way communication, we can find ways to work around linguistic issues without totally events-based parent communication and parental involvement. There's opportunities for parents that maybe work a different shift to be involved with the school. And there will be a variety of stakeholders that could be involved, not just parents, because we would be looking for ways to integrate that into the curriculum. The cons here are that it may be unsatisfactory to the parents, and that the changes for teachers will certainly require some effort and training. This sort of thing doesn't happen overnight, and the teachers will require some training and more likely some time to get the ball rolling with some of these projects. And then option four, increasing involvement by creating additional events for parents. This would offer opportunities for increased parental involvement. It would get parents in the school buildings and interacting with each other and with school employees. And there would be a potential for helpful communication and relationship building. Again, the parents would be in the school buildings. There would be more events. That's usually a joyous or a happy time, for, at least, especially for students. And so there could be some positives that come out of this. The cons here are that the parents remain uninvolved in curriculum. Again, it's mostly one-way communication. You would miss some parents. There's not a lot of feedback from the parents or opportunity for them to give input, and it may be unsatisfactory to the parent group. So the choice here is option number 3, to cooperatively improve stakeholder involvement opportunities. This is most likely to remain within the legal and ethical boundaries for parent involvement, while offering the desired increased opportunities for meaningful participation. And I think that's the key word, is meaningful participation for parents. The parents can communicate with teachers. There's opportunities for parents to be involved, both with student learning and with the curriculum, by offering their resources, their services, and their expertise to help train and educate their students. So to implement this plan, first I'd meet with the superintendent and discuss it. What am I missing? I would get some suggestions from him or her for implementation, and then I'd consider time for training and planning during in-service. This would be something that I would discuss with the superintendent. How much time is appropriate? When could we do this? How soon? And then how do we get the ball rolling for teachers on this plan? Then I would meet with the parents group to discuss the plan. I would first describe the limitations on parental involvement, some of the laws surrounding confidentiality, some of the issues with bringing parents into the schools as observers on a frequent basis. I would discuss two-way communication with the parents, maybe some of the things that they would like to see from their teachers, some of the ways that they would like to be communicated with. I'd probably propose a couple of options that we had considered. And then consider consistent and meaningful ways that parents could help. And this would be the bulk of the meeting, just a brainstorming session with parents of what are the ways that you think you can help on a consistent basis, on a meaningful basis. How can you help our school to educate our students? And with a little bit of guiding and some leading questions, could probably get many parents at least to offer some sort of resource or expertise that they have where they could come in and perhaps be a partner with a teacher. Or they could meet with their student or a group of students outside of school to offer some of their expertise. Or maybe they could come in for an interview or something like that. There's a variety of ways that parents can be involved without necessarily being a part of the evaluation process or a process that puts extra effort and extra restraints on teachers. And then I would also discuss potential student projects, again, involving that parent involvement. What does that look like? How much time are you wanting to spend? How much time are your students wanting to spend on this sort of thing? So that they get an idea of how they can be involved with their students' education without needing to supplant the teacher. I would then meet with staff to describe these changes. I'd offer time and training during in-service, hopefully, to develop that two-way communication and to start developing some of those projects that would need to be integrated on a project or assignment on a consistent basis. One district that I've worked in has required one PBL or project-based learning project every semester for each class. So maybe it's something like that, a parental involvement on an assignment once per semester. If every class does that, that probably has a fairly significant and a fairly consistent stream of parental and stakeholder involvement for students. And parents most likely would quickly see that and be excited about the opportunity to participate in their child's education. I would then seek input from staff about ways that parents could help them with resources, interviews, visits, field trips. What are some of the resources that we feel as a staff we're lacking, and where could parents help make up that gap? And then I would actually plan and promote the back to school night, which seems like a step in reverse, but I'd get together a committee of teachers, parents, and other stakeholders. And we would promote this as a launching pad for the school year, not just a standalone event. This isn't something where we're just going to walk you through the schedule that your student has. This is a launching pad that so that we are ready to communicate and cooperate for the remainder of the year. We'd offer information about how the school will communicate with parents and how parents can then communicate with the school. We'd solicit input about resources parents and stakeholders think they could offer to help the school. And those would be really the two big goals for the night. That is an event, so we would certainly miss some people. So this is probably the sort of thing that would be streamed and put on a Facebook feed, or where the information would be offered in multiple different places so that those that couldn't make it could still attend. This is also something that would need to be offered in multiple languages, if that's a consideration at the school I'm working in. So having a translator or having materials that are printed in multiple languages would be important here. And then what might happen? First, and hopefully the parents group is supportive and accepting of these changes. There are certainly opportunities for meaningful involvement offered here. So the parents get involved quickly, they offer their help, and that increased involvement improves the educational experience for all. And that is truly the goal of parent involvement and really of education, is to create the best educational experience for students that we can. The second option, or really the other route that I could see this going, is that the parents group considers these changes unsatisfactory, that they want to have a larger voice in, say, evaluation and curriculum planning. And as the principal at that point, I really would just need to describe to these parents that they have no legal standing and really nothing to uphold their considerations for involvement in teacher involvement in discipline. There's confidentiality issues there. Curriculum input is almost always dictated in large part by state standards. So I probably would go ahead and proceed anyway with this plan for those parents that are willing to participate. Because there's really no way to involve these major committees on discipline and on evaluation and things like that, this plan could still proceed. If they have input on those issues, there could be ways to involve that. If I have parents that really want to, say, mentor a struggling youth that's struggling with discipline, there might be a way to involve that, whether that's through Big Brothers or Big Sisters or some other organization. But the plan as a whole would still continue to proceed. We would just redirect that input so that it falls in line with the legal and ethical requirements and restrictions on that parental involvement. Again, the hope here is that it improves the educational experience for all involved, for all stakeholders, and for all students. And I think that this plan would do that. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.